Hey, good morning and good evening. Hello and welcome to our webinar, Fortifying Digital Personal Data Protection Rules Compliance Implementation Simplified. On behalf of Alpha MD Private Limited, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. I am Nishi Sharma, Associate Vice President, Digital Governance and Quality Assurance, and will be moderating this interesting webinar. Having 17 plus years of experience in digital compliance and data privacy, coupled with a wealth of experience in digital transformation and compliance of digital products, I was fortunate to derive the implementation of digital platforms and medical device-based technology in the clinical ecosystem in leading pharmaceutical company in compliance with US FDA, EMEA, Indian DCGI regulatory standards. Currently, I am leveraging my rich experience in Alpha MD by enabling digital technology companies in enhancing their data protection posture. Have you all ever imagined how our lives would be without rules? People would be just able to do whatever they wanted. A chaotic picture immediately comes to our mind. Nothing less than a roller coaster and adrenaline fueled excitement, isn't it? Rules exist in society to maintain law and order, protect people, maintain economic stability, regulate commercial activities, and ensure fair treatment to all in the society. Whether it is the safety of our lives, our food, vehicles, our family, property, or safeguarding our constitutional right of speech, right of freedom, right of equality. Rules bind individuals against their wrongdoings and impose punishment in case of non-compliance. Yes, we are talking here about the safety of our personal data. And to safeguard our constitutional right of privacy, Indian government has released draft personal data protection rules that put forth provisions for processing of digital personal data while protecting rights of users and making them aware of their consequences. We have today an amazing line of speakers today who are our partners and are there to support you and your companies in your data protection journey. They will touch base on the data protection requirements in the digital world, must-haves to be compliant with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, implementation guide for DPDP compliance, and a thorough understanding of the nuances of the Indian Data Protection Act. Also, to learn the organizational challenges and methodologies to overcome. Furthermore, to help your inquisitive minds, we have a chat function and a Q&A function where you can submit your questions. Feel free to drop your questions and share your thoughts and experiences. We will answer them at the end of the session. Once again, thank you for joining us today. I hope you are also excited as I am for the enlightening discussion ahead. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Sandeep Arya, who is a renowned lawyer having more than 20 years of extensive experience. Sandeep has been acknowledged by his clients for devising out-of-box strategies and ability to find alternate solutions to the most critical and complex challenges related to their businesses across geographies. In the telecom space, Sandeep has worked extensively across sectors, including managing the India's first spectrum sharing and spectrum trading transaction. Telecom spectrum waves were as assigned to Videocon Telecommunications Limited. Sandeep had worked with media companies and headed the Pan-India telecom litigation for almost 7 years, dealing with media, broadcasting, and cable infrastructure businesses. He also served and gave consultancy to some pan-India telecom operators operating under UL, UACL licenses and manage their litigation and regulatory communication. Sandeep regularly appears before TDSAT, High Courts and Supreme Court of India in relation to telecom, corporate, commercial and IPR matters. So let's hear from Sandeep how DPDP Act will be playing a pivotal role in the life of Indian customers and businesses. Sandeep, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all, and good morning to the people who are outside this jurisdiction and territory. Friends, and thank you, Nishi, for generous introduction and what kind words. So, coming to the today's topic, which has been assigned to me, on which I'll be trying and giving my views and what my understanding of this law. So, straight away we'll start the presentation and we'll go through it one by one. So I'll just share my slide with that. Friends, today's topic is Simplifying Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. In short, we call it DPDP Act. So to understand any law or any subject matter which the legislator has passed, we just go to the intent of it and the reason, try to find out the object and reason why the legislator or why the government has passed to it. So let's understand and see for what reason the government has passed this law. The object and reasons of DPDP Act. So the government of India in last few decades, uh, mainly to say last decade, if I'll say from 2010 onwards, realized that there is a good volume of transactions done by individual for availing the services and for their other purposes. So that is the one focus. Digital transaction had transformed economic as well as social interaction. Use of personal data for provision of services and other purpose is common aspect of such transactions. That is one. Second, they also realize that in this context, the protection of personal data has become a prerequisite for the growth of digital economy. So economical factor is involved to say that if you want to put your economic on a fast pace, so you'll have to take certain measure, and that government keeping in mind that took this measure to pass this law. We'll come to that in detail, more detail when we go to next slides. Then another reason was then once you deal. So one thing I would like to highlight here. It's not that India did not have a IT related law earlier. So we had a Information Technology Act 2002, but it was not a individual centric. It was more primarily of intermediary companies, ISP companies, and other entities. So this law, DPDPX, is individual centric. It talks about the individual and their rights. So in that background, Digital Personal Data Protection Act confers rights on individuals to protect their personal data. And it also talk about a personal data. It's not talking about any data which is related to any artificial person or a corporate entity. Places obligation on entities that the process of personal data and lays down the compliance mechanism. So these are the main criteria. These are the main reason that the government of India deem fit that it is time for India to have such law. Moving on to our next slide. So when we talk about any law, then we should have some clarity on the definitions. So there are few definition. I'll try to simplify them and in a more simple language, and then we should understand these definition when we go into detail of this law. So what data means? What is data? So far as this act is concerned, data has been defined in the IT Act, but that definition will not suffice the purposes of individual. So they have given the definition here. So it reads, data means a representation of information, facts, concepts, opinions, or instruction in a manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing by human beings or by automated means. So if I put in a layman's language, so it includes every information which can be correlated or identifiable with the individual. For I'll give you example. Say my name is Sandeep. So Sandeep itself is a noun, but how you identify me, because it is to a individual, right? So that is identifiable. The name is a fact. It is identifiable. Another example I give, say my mobile number. My mobile number is a 9 digits only, right? But Can I be identified by mobile? Yes, because it has been issued in my name. When I went there, to buy a mobile SIM card, they issued in my name. They took my documents, they did their KYC, and then they issued me. So tomorrow, if you want to identify, this number can be identify me. So I hope that clarifies this. Then data fiduciary. We also understand what is data fiduciary. Data fiduciary means any person who alone or in conjunction with other persons determines, mark these two words, purpose and means. So purpose, for what purpose it is to be done, and what tools you are doing, what means of processing of a personal data. So if I'll simplify it with an example. Say for example, you go to a bank, any bank, to just open an account, right? So that bank becomes a data fiduciary, and you are an individual, and you give certain information to a bank. And what is the purpose? To open an account. So that is the purpose. And how they do it, they fill your information in certain manner, in certain performa, and certain requirement. So that becomes means. Then personal data. That we also understand what is personal data. Now we understood what is data, who is data fiduciary, and now see what is personal data. Personal data means any data about an individual who is identifiable by or in relation to such data. The example I gave, that my mobile number is an information or a fact or a digits. You can identify me by that. Or my name, for example, is a noun, and you can identify me as Sandeep Arya is this person. Personal data breaches you should also understand, because it's all about breach itself. Personal data breach means any unauthorized processing of personal data or accidental disclosure, acquisition, sharing, use, alteration, destruction, or loss of access to personal data that compromises the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of personal data. So it's a very comprehensive definition, and they all expression and words you are in this definition are self-explanatory. So breach is in one line, if I have to clarify. So any unauthorized processing of personal data which is not been mandated by the individual, and it has been done, then it becomes a breach. So coming, and any queries with that, with regard to that, so we'll come in the question and answer session. Moving on to next slide. So how does, that's a question I think we all be waiting for this. How does DPDP Act affect my organization? So supposedly I'm running some business, I'm running some company. So how does it, this law as such per se, affects my organization? So sorry. So Digital Personal Data, DPDP Act, is India's framework for safeguarding personal data, balancing individual privacy. So when we talk about a data which is identifiable with the individual, so element of privacy is involved in it, right? So if my personal data or my mobile number or my any information related to me is also an information which may affect the privacy of an individual. Organizational needs. Here is how it impacts your organization. Step to ensure compliance and opportunities. So we'll, in a point-wise point, we'll go to each point and how it affects and what we can do about that. We remain compliant to that. So irrespective of volume of data processed by any organization, this law will apply equally to all. It applies to all, except few exemptions which are being given in the Act. So Section 17 of the DPDP Act gives some exemption, a power to the central government, that they, under their power, can pass a rule and exempt certain organizations, or certain exemptions are given. Just to give an example, say some information is been given or treated or processed by, for some beneficiary schemes introduced by the government for the benefit of people, right? So those, when the government gives those beneficiary scheme to the masses or people, so they process your data. So they are exempted, for example. Or to give example of, say, some government authority or some, say, some court case is going on. So court is dealing with the information or data of individuals those may have filed, and is if there is something, some breach happens from from court's end, or so those entities or those government authorities are being exempted, and there's the further power to the government, then they can notify the further exemptions. Coming to the next point, whether you are a service or goods company, either in B2B or B2C structure, your organization is dealing and handling third party data as well as in-house data of your own employees, which could be their medical records, financial details, personal data. Therefore, privacy and confidentiality of data of individual. Number two, I'm talking. I'll just summarize it. So, for example, say I'm in some business. I'm delivering or I'm selling some goods. So whenever I sell, for example, I'm uh, any goods. For say I'm selling some mobile phone or electronic gadgets. So whosoever comes to my shop, they buy some mobile phone or some electronic device. So while billing them, while generating invoice, I'll take their information, right? I'll take their at least a name of a person. Then I may take their mobile number they ask usually. So I'm taking that. That is one example. In the smallest unit of business, you are taking or you are dealing or processing a data of individual. That is one. And to give another example, say you are an organization of say about say 50, 20, or maybe 100 people. So, and you are into business where you are doing B2C business. So you are giving certain services or goods to some third party individuals, visitors. So for example, I'm running a hotel. So whosoever comes to my hotel to stay or consume food, so I'll be taking their personal data. Somebody staying in my hotel, so I'll be taking their personal data. There's some document that by which I can identify that this is the same person. And vis-a-vis, I have some staff, people working in my company or my hotel. So to process and to day to day, I'm also taking because they are my staff, so I might be paying them salary, so I might be knowing their bank accounts. I might be knowing their health status because I'm in such a service industry, so their health is issue. So I might be knowing about their medical records. So I in that sense I am dealing with two verticals of data. One, the consumers or people or guests who are visiting my hotel and staying. Second, the employees or a team or staff who's working in my hotel, I also become liable to their about their personal data. So to have a holistic approach and comprehensive system, it is imperative to have assessment. So how do you deal with it? That you remain compliant, there is no breach, and you maintain your records well. So how do we do that? So it's imperative to have an assessment of data, its nature, its category, a risk assessment, etc., are required to be done by the professional or subject matter experts. So who understand this subject. That is the first and foremost we should do as a company or as a business owner. Now, with this coming to the next slide, DPDP Act will affect in following ways. So these are the few, highlighting points I put that how this law will affect us when it is notified. So the law is notified, the law is passed. Now only the initiation, that notification date, that from which date it will be implemented, that has to come. So expand accountability. You must process personal data only with consent or for legitimate use. So in the second slide, we saw that you should know data fiduciary, the person who is dealing with the data is a data fiduciary, should determine the purpose and then use means how it's to be done. So legitimate use like employment contracts, emergencies, or government mandates. Then next is implement data minimization. Collect only what is necessary, right? Just to give an example, say to invoice somebody. uh, for me to, it's good enough that I know the name of a person, simply, until unless it has more some deep and detailed big transaction. Or for example, if you book a cab, to travel from point A to point B, so what is required? Your location maybe, from where the cab will pick you, and then maybe you are where it will drop you. Nothing more than that. Or maybe maximum your mobile number, or if you do some online transaction. So that should be taken care of. Individual rights. User can access, correct, delete, or port their data. You must address the request within the defined timelines. So it is for a larger transactions or data. Say for example, I'm holding some data of a person, and it's a, for example, if I'll put in an example, a bank. Say I'm having a bank account. So the user or individual should have access to all this. So if there is some correction required, some deletion required, so all those facilities should be given by the data fiduciary to the data principal. That is individual. Data localization, while not throughout mandate across border data transfer require adherence to the government approved mechanism. So it's basically primarily for the organization who are dealing with a certain voluminous data, and then they the data is being processed in one jurisdiction, and then something services or goods are supplied in different jurisdiction. So it is advisable that you keep the data localized. Say for example, I'm doing some services, it's not mandate, but it is advisable. So I'm doing and offering some goods and services in India, so I try to keep that data and process within India. Not if even if I'm outsourcing to third party, it should be done within India. Strict penalties. So this law provides that if there is non-compliance to this law, and then there is a detailed process provided that there is a data protection board setup is there, and there is an appellate tribunal, then the penalty may go up to 250 crore. That is about $30 million per violation. So that is a very high penalty, if I'll miss so. That is one. So coming to next slide, stay compliant without disruption. So next question, which as a business owner or as a professional comes to my mind, what do I do? How do I avoid this kind of heavy penalties? So I have just summarized few pointers which may be considered and which could be of help. I'll just quickly run through them. So conduct a data audit. That is must map all your personal data flows, customers, employees, vendors, and classify data by sensitivity. Update privacy policies. So if you have a policy, put that in line with the current laws and rules. If you don't have, please have it one. Revamp consent mechanism. So this is again a technical thing. It's to be done if some consent mechanism is there in place. It requires a revisit, and its consent, it should be, you should make sure that it's not a consent is not obtained by playing trick upon the individual, or say dark patterns sometimes use some companies, use some credit card companies, or some insurance companies use. So that is one. So next is appoint key roles. Designate a data protection officer, DPO, if processing large scale data, high risk data. So if you are in such a business, or if you are running such an organization which deals with the voluminous metadata or high risk data. When I say high risk, say some data is very sensitive in nature. Say you are having some information or data which is very sensitive in nature. For say example, financial data, or maybe somebody's health data. See, though they all fall in the category of high risk data. Train employees, educate team, especially HR, IT, and customers facing roles on DPDP principle, breach and protocols, automate compliance, use tool for consent management, data subject request, data lifecycle tracking, and reduce manual efforts. Strengthen security, encrypt data, conduct regular vulnerability assessment, and establish breach notification processes. So in this law, DPDP Act will talk about, say, for 72 hours is a mandate given once you come to know that there is some data breach. That is 72 mandate hour is to the board, the data protection board. But to an individual whose data has been breached is immediate. The moment I come, for example, I come to know today, this time, this hour, immediately I try to inform the individual that this breach has happened. You will take all the measures, try to mitigate, and then you, from your end also, we are making you aware that you take all the necessary steps. This is to the individual. 72 hours is to the board. Review vendor contracts. So whatever contracts, third party contracts we have, so we'll have to review those contracts so that we don't any data, we don't fall in that trap of data breach. The opportunities in the privacy era. So as we all understand that Europe passed their GDPR in 2018. And then in India now we are having this law, and in all other jurisdiction, US jurisdiction and other Australia, China, they already have their DPDP, privacy and data privacy laws. So what entire world has been, under kind of, it's been governed and driven by data. It's like everything is the data. So, for example, when I get some, transaction on some payment in my bank account. So, but I only see a message in my mobile phone that some digits have been credited to my account. So it's all data. So I'll quickly just try to explain this what it is. Build trust and differentiator. So when you deal data with the utmost care, so it builds trust among your vendors and the people who you are serving. So, for example, transparent practice enhance brand reputation and customer loyalty. Then innovate responsibly. Develop a privacy-centric products. Examples: anonymize analytic tools or services, consent management platforms. Operational efficiency. So it gives more efficiency when you manage your data well. Global market access. So DPDP compliance aligns with the standards like GDPR, easing entry to international market. So there are few business models which may in near future may come up. Say, for example, the government of India is thinking very seriously on digital bank licenses. So in near future, you may say that you may need not to go to the bank for any banking services. That entirely can be done from your mobile or tab or whatever device you are using. Currently, this digital banking service is done under the conventional bankings, but the government will issue a separate licensing where there would be no branch banks. So that could be a near future we can see. And others, say for example, aggregator business could be upcoming thing. So somebody is thinking that you are not a producer or provider of a services, neither you are a consumer, but they exist in the market and customers, there's a demand. So what you do, you become an aggregator, like food apps, food delivery apps. They are aggregators only. So these business based on good technology, I think will govern the nature and upcoming market for the business. So friend, this is it from my side today, and I hope I try to simplify things, whatever in my understanding are. So with this, thank you, Nishi, and please apologize me if I have exceeded my time limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. No, you were on time. I would say understanding is the key to compliance, and you have simplified the concepts of DPDP Act through layman examples and through a step-by-step approach. We can try to be compliant to the Act. Once again, thank you, Sandeep, for delivering such an insightful thought.